In today's video, we have all the latest NHL trade talk from around the league getting closer to the NHL trade deadline. Tonight's video focusing on several teams, including the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Montreal Canadiens, Edmonton Oilers, St. Louis Blues, the New Jersey Devils, and a few others as well. Plus, we have another hearing for Nikita Zadorov in Vancouver, maybe facing a suspension, plus several other updates. And Alex Ovechkin has broken one of Gretzky's records. Not the one he was hoping for, though. We'll discuss all that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a lot to cover here today. We have several trade rumors as we're getting closer to the deadline. Lots of information, including a little bit of info from Elliotte Friedman tonight on the Saturday headline segment of Hockey Night in Canada, which just aired a short time ago, but a lot of other details from around the league as well. But first, let's start with a potential suspension that may be coming. Canucks defenseman Nikita Zadorov was called today for a hearing during a game that they played earlier this afternoon against the Detroit Red Wings at a matinee affair, a game in which they actually had a pretty good lead and blew it. The Red Wings came back from a 3-1 deficit, came back to win 4-3 in overtime. Zadorov was called early in the game for an illegal check to the head against Red Wings forward Lucas Raymond. It was a definitely a bad hit for sure. I do feel he's definitely going to be suspended. It's difficult to say exactly what he's looking at. Probably a couple of games. I don't think it's going to be too bad, but probably at least 1 or 2 games coming up for Zadorov. The Canucks have not looked the greatest here the past couple of games. Certainly, Coach Rick Tocchet making a few changes to the lineup today as well, trying to see if he can get his team going. And they did have a pretty good start to the game, but didn't have a very good finish. So we'll see how they bounce back. Of course, this game today for the Red Wings also marked the return of Patrick Kane, who had missed some time. Of course, Kane signed late with the Red Wings this year, had a decent start to his season and time in Detroit, ended up getting hurt. Has been out for a few weeks, made his return today, which I believe was game number 1200. So it was a milestone game actually for him and David Perron. I think it was 1100 for Perron, 1200 for Kane, if I'm not mistaken. So milestone games for both those guys. Red Wings come back and win in overtime, which is something that I've seen them do a few times. You can't count them out. And the Canucks didn't really take care of their own business here today after having a lead going into the later part of the game. So certainly not good on that front. In Montreal today, Montreal was playing Dallas. It was an early matinee game as well. Raphael Harvey-Pinard was injured today, and Alex Newhook returned. So Newhook's back, and then afterwards the Habs announced that they have recalled Joshua Waugh. So he'll get another stint here in the NHL due to Harvey-Pinard's injury. Vegas today announced as well that Caden Korzek's been sent back to the American Hockey League. In Washington, a couple of tidbits there. Max Pacioretty played in game number 15 on the season today, and because of his contract and the way it's structured, that unlocks a $500,000 bonus. Given the fact that he's out on an extended time on LTIR, he qualified for a bonus-structured contract on a 1-year deal, and all of his bonuses are connected to games played. So he just earned himself $500,000 today just for showing up and taking his first shift and calling an appearance. So nice financial day for Max Pacioretty. There's still a lot of talk around him as well, that if there's interest and a contender wants to acquire him, it is believed that he would waive his no-move to be dealt, and the Caps can get something in return for him. But I don't know how much interest there's going to be. Obviously, he's missed the bulk of the past 2 years due to injury, and he's got 1 goal on the season in 15 games. So we'll see where that goes for the future. And staying in Washington, as I mentioned off the top here, Alex Ovechkin not having the greatest season as well. I mean, he's barely on pace to score around 20 goals, which is not good for the Great Eight. I mean, we were typically used to seeing, 50-goal seasons, and, even a bad season for him is 35 to 40. Now he's barely on pace for 20. Obviously, it looks like Father Time might be winning this battle. I mean, reminder here to everybody, Father Time is undefeated, and we'll catch up to everybody at some point. And it seems like this is the year for Ovechkin, but it's not just him. The team hasn't really done great either. So playing a role here, but Alex Ovechkin did break one of the all-time great Wayne Gretzky's records today. We know he would like to get the all-time goals record, which he's still a ways off on, and certainly, he's still possible for him to break it and take that spot at number 1, but depending on how this slowdown that we've seen with him, if that continues or not, like it could be challenging for him to break it, but it really boils down to how long he plays, which we don't know. If everybody assumes he's going to retire at the end of his current contract, so we'll have to wait and see where it goes. If he's that close to it, it wouldn't surprise me if he played one extra year just to do it. So we'll see. But Ovechkin today scored another empty net goal and now surpasses Wayne Gretzky to be the all-time leader in empty net goals scored with 57. So obviously, I know that's might seem like it's just a funny stat. I got a kick out of that. And at the end of the day, it shows that he's obviously a critical player for his team. He's on the ice in a lot of important situations. And obviously all goals count regardless if there's a goalie in the net or not. So Alex Ovechkin breaking one of Gretzky's records, just not the one that he really would like to be associated with. On to the rumors section of the video. All kinds of stuff today, as I mentioned. A few tidbits tonight from Elliotte Friedman on Saturday Headlines, but a lot of this other information, some of it's come from Dave Pagnotta, thefourthperiod.com, as well as Frank Cervalli, Chris Johnson, and all the other NHL insiders. Lots of topics around the league right now. Let's start with the Montreal Canadiens. I know we keep hearing a lot about the future of Jake Allen in Montreal. It's believed that he's most likely going to be the goalie that gets moved. That 3-goalie system's been going on all season in Montreal, and it's not really the greatest. He is scheduled to play tomorrow against his former team, the St. Louis Blues, and of course, Montembeault seems to be the goalie that's safe from being moved. Primo, because of the fact that he's younger and has shown some progress, unlikely, so it's believed Jake will be the guy to go. At the same time, though, I do believe Ken Hughes is not going to move him unless he gets what he wants. And I think he'll go the rest of the season as a 3-goalie system if he absolutely has to. And maybe we see a move in the summer because Allen is under contract with the Habs for one more season. So it's not like they have to do this now, but there's lots of teams that need help in goal, and he would be a great fit on several of them to work more in a tandem situation, which is what he kind of specializes in my opinion. That's the time that he's been strongest and most successful in the NHL was when he was in a good tandem situation, especially during his younger days with the Blues. He was in tandem with Brian Elliott. That was a phenomenal situation. Obviously, when he first came to Montreal, Carey Price was still active at that point. That's something that they kind of had in mind there. So we'll see. But one team that NHL analyst and former goaltender himself, Marty Biron, suggests should be aggressive after Allen is the Avalanche. The Avalanche have been another team that's been not looking so hot after the All-Star break. They got off, of course, had to start on a road trip, and they have not done well. I think they've got 3 games in now since the All-Star break was over, and they have not looked great in any of them. So obviously, Alex Georgiev has been a good goalie for them, but he needs some help, and they're just not getting it there. To bring in a veteran like Allen who could be a little bit more reliable to take on a little bit more of a workload to give Georgiev the rest he needs to be ready for the playoffs and be available in the playoffs in case they need that help would be a much needed acquisition. Of course, his contract complicates things a little bit given the fact that he is making a healthy salary for somebody who's considered more of a number 2 goaltender, and he does have another year of term on his contract, so clearly not the most easiest move to make. They do have some LTIR wiggle room with Landeskog being out, but I don't know. It still seems challenging that they could get the deal done. But would he be a good fit in Colorado? He would be, but I think there's some other teams out there too, which including the Devils, that we're going to talk about as well. But the Avalanche, according to Marty Biron, should be all over Jake Allen. I'd love to know what you think down in the comments on that one. Now, yesterday we talked about the fact that the Buffalo Sabres are pretty active out there and are looking to make some pretty significant moves. Elliotte Friedman talked again about the Sabres tonight on the Saturday Headlines segment, so this comes from multiple sources now. We originally got the information from Rivet and Peters on the After the Whistle podcast, so we're well connected in the Sabres market. Now Friedman's talked about it as well, that the Sabres are definitely looking to do some big things out there, but they want to make moves that make them better right now. They're not looking to just dump off a couple of players because they're not in the playoff picture. They're looking to make some hockey trades. To bring in some guys that are going to help them finish strong and be better for next year and beyond. So the belief is they're looking to shop Casey Middlestat. Friedman made mention of Middlestat being available. He kind of downplayed the fact that they're aggressively shopping him, which the Buffalo guys made mention of. But I will say this, there is mention of the Bruins have been scouting the Sabres a lot. A lot of the Bruins management people in various aspects of it, of that team, have been showing up and watching the Sabres closely. So we know the Bruins don't have the deepest, center on the team. Like, they're not nearly as deep at center as they used to be. Although I must say the guys that they have are filling in admirably, considering there's no Bergeron, no Krejci. Coyle's really stepped up. Geeky's done okay. Zach has filled in at times. But could they add more to that depth? Absolutely. And it could be more for not only for the playoff run, but for the future. So it does appear as though the Bruins are one of the teams that are showing interest in Mittelstadt, who could very well be, like I said, a potential number 2 center in the future for the Bruins. We'll see. They could have their eyes on other aspects too, but they're one of the many teams that have been showing up at a lot of Sabres games. But like I said before, the Sabres also looking for a number 1 goaltender, and the belief is that the main one they've kind of circled so far as a target has been John Gibson. But there could be other names out there that they're looking at that we have not heard about just yet. Now, speaking of goaltending, New Jersey's another team that really needs goaltending. Vitek Vanacek is having a horrible season. They had already sent Kira Schmid down. Nico Dawes has been up. They haven't played Dawes a lot because of the lack of experience. But Vanacek is just not getting it done. And at the end of the day here, New Jersey's kind of getting more and more as each game goes by, more and more of a higher risk to miss the playoffs, which would be a big step back from them, obviously, compared to how things went last year. So it's believed that the Devils and GM Tom Fitzgerald are certainly out there goalie shopping. As Friedman made mention on the Saturday Headline segment tonight, there is belief that the Devils and the Flames have had some pretty serious conversations around goaltender Jacob Markstrom. Now, as he mentioned on this segment on Saturday Headlines tonight, they believe like they've hit a snag. And the belief is that it's mostly around making the cap work and the package going back from New Jersey to Calgary, that they've kind of run into, figuring out how it can work for both sides, that everybody would be in agreement. Now, he also made mention that Jacob Markstrom, at this point, is believed to not necessarily been asked to waive his no-move clause. It has not gotten to that stage. Wonders if they'll kind of keep talking and keep trying to figure it out, and if it can possibly end up getting there here eventually. But for right now, Markstrom has not been brought into the loop. At least he doesn't believe so, but also can't confirm that he hadn't been either. The fact is, though, is that there's serious interest from New Jersey side. They've had some pretty serious conversations. We know Markstrom himself, on his own comments that he's made to Sportsnet reporter Eric Francis, was that it doesn't sound like he's opposed to waiving it. It sounds like he's content to stay, but if the Flames want to keep making moves here, that he's willing to look at it and consider it. I don't think it would be an automatic no from him. So at the end of the day here, it's believed as well that one of the main focal points of a potential trade that could happen for the Flames' interest is they would want a young winger, Alexander Holtz, who I think has the potential to be a pretty good scoring winger in this league down the road. Obviously they had some younger pieces and prospects that would be attractive, I think, to the Flames. I think a big part of this as well, that based on what Friedman said, is that the Devils would want the Flames to do some salary retention on the Markstrom contract, and it's not like he's a pending UFA, so it's not like it's just for this year. So they'd be holding back money for multiple years. That gets complicated. You're only allowed to do retention on 3 contracts. It's a preferred thing that the Flames probably don't really want to do, and that's probably where the snag hit. So maybe a third team gets involved. Hard to say. It sounds like there's a lot of interest to make it work. It's just complicated, and the numbers are not jiving. So, will they revisit it? Will they continue having discussions? I think it's a good chance they will, but it's going to be challenging to figure out. I'd be curious to see how they move ahead, because Markstrom could be an excellent piece for them. And there's also belief that the Devils, being without Dougie Hamilton, would like to add on the blue line too, and that there could be a package deal of Markstrom and either Hanifin Tanev being involved in that kind of deal as well. They may not necessarily want to extend the D-man that comes with the goalie in this case because they have Hamilton coming back next year on a long-term lucrative deal. So that might be more of a rental situation just to try to get in and do some damage in the playoffs. But for right now, those are where things stand. So that we could see, it'd be interesting to see if we get a serious deal here between the Devils and the Flames. And in Edmonton, there is some belief, after all, according to the fourthperiod.com, that they still might just be able to trade Jack Campbell. There's belief that the Oilers and Flyers have some mutual interest here and that they've had some talks around Sean Walker. The Oilers, we know, likely want to add up front and on the blue line. If they're able to do that, they're going to have to move a fairly substantial contract to do it, and the Flyers just might take Campbell's contract off their hands, but they would need to be incentivized to do it. For example, it's believed that the Oilers would like Walker and maybe a forward, so that forward maybe could end up being Scott Laughton as well. Like, he could be a good fit there. So if they get a combo of Laughton and Walker, they'd probably have to also include, besides a guy like Campbell, like you got to remember here, Campbell's going to be going as considered a bad contract, but according to the fourthperiod.com, in Dave Pagnotta, he says that the Flyers are willing to take a bad contract if they're given the right incentive. So we know that they have Phil Broberg. We know that they have a first-round pick that they'll dangle. There's other prospects, whether it be Bourgault, Lavoie. I think they would be able to throw in some kind of a package that way, along with Campbell, to make it worth their while to make that deal work. So that could be a fit there. We'll see. I know Campbell's been really good the last 6 or 7 games in the American Hockey League as well. So I do kind of half wonder if the Oilers want to give him another shot here before the deadline just to see where it goes. Maybe he comes up and he plays well and that completely changes their mind. But then again, it may not, right? So we'll have to see where that goes, but it's not out of the realm of possibility that Campbell could be moved. There could be a way for them to do it and just to move on and not take their chances that it doesn't work out in the future. Because clearly, as of what we've seen in the last 6 to 8 weeks, it looks like Skinner's ready to keep the ball here and run with it in Edmonton. So do they need Campbell long-term, even if he can come back and finish strong? Maybe not, so we'll see. And in Toronto, there's belief, again, I saw an article from an NHL writer suggesting that there's some talks going on between the Leafs and the Blues that would involve Colton Parayko going to Toronto. Now, that one, as much as I think he's got the size, the strength, he's a right shot, Stanley Cup champion, there was lots of likable Parayko that would be attractive for the Leafs to be interested. The only tricky part here is from a cap perspective. I don't know how the Leafs would do it. The reported deal, or interest level, I should say, on this article, it had Sammy Blais being included as well, and Parayko going to the Leafs in exchange for a combination that would include some combination of Calle Järnkrok or David Kampf, maybe one or both. Ryan Reeves name was mentioned, and then you're looking at some futures to be, make it worth their while here. So they could include a first-round pick. Maybe it's a prospect like Topi Niemela. Maybe it's a Nick Robertson, one of the younger players on the roster. So you're looking at a young player, and probably a combination of at least 2 roster players, with Reeves maybe going back to the Blues, along with either Järnkrok or Kampf or some combination of that. But even then, Parayko's got a lot of term on his contract. I just don't see a scenario where St. Louis wants to retain money on that for 5-6 years or whatever it is that's left on that. So I don't, as much as I see how it could work from the Leafs perspective, I find it very unlikely that they could figure it out without moving a more substantial player, which I just don't see them wanting to do right now. So we'll see where that goes, but certainly kind of makes sense from the Leafs perspective. I just don't know how they'd make it work, and they've been linked to a lot of players, as Friedman put it on the 32 Thoughts podcast recently, and again tonight on the Saturday Headline segment. The Leafs seem to be in a lot of conversations around a lot of defensemen, and at the end of the day, they definitely want to add on a blue line before the playoffs. But at the same time, the price has to work. They only have so much they can move. They've given up a lot in the last few years to kind of go for it, and it hasn't worked out. So I think they need to be a little bit careful this year as well. And they may have a hard time getting a bigger name back there. So we'll see where that goes. But let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.